Hey everyone, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. It's very cold and very dark here, so it's a little bit sucky, but I hope it's nicer where you are. It's alright anyway, because today I'm not out there in the cold and the dark being miserable. I'm in here showing you the MXR 10 band EQ, which I've been experimenting with for a little while now, and I'm still learning my way around. But what I have noticed so far is that it gives you so much control over your sound, it's a little bit scary. Now you might already know, the MXR 10 band EQ has been in circulation for a long time now, at least 20 years, if not longer. Randy Rhoads used to use one, Dimebag Darrell I think used a 6 band, but it's the same concept. Kerry King uses one, Slash uses one. They're used by a lot of people to shape the sound beyond what you can get just in an amp's tone controls. Now I'm quite lucky in that I use a Mesa Mark 525 with the 5-band graphic EQ. On that I've got so much control over what I want to do, it's still not quite enough, and that's where the 10 band steps in. I've been practicing recording and mixing a lot recently, and I can't help but notice that to get the kind of sound that you want in a DAW and on a finished, song or whatever, it takes a lot more EQ than is possible in a guitar amp. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to mess with the EQ a little bit, see if we can get that kind of record ready sound at least as close to it as we can get without putting it through a DAW and whatever else. And I'm also going to use it just as a tone shaping tool to get kind of sounds that you use for an effect rather than as your actual guitar sound. But before we do any of that, I owe you a bit of an apology. I've tried to do a little 2-camera setup so you can see what position the EQ sliders are at, but the lights on this pedal are so bright they've completely dazzled the second camera. I've made a really jury-rigged attempt to try and shine some light onto the EQ to kind of counteract how bright the slider LEDs are. It might not be the best quality footage, I apologise if it isn't. If it's terrible, I'll just take some photos of the settings that I'm also using and put those up, just so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so let's get on to that. I'll start off on a clean sound with the EQ switched off, just so you can see what I'm working with as a bass, kind of sound to work from. The bass tone, I've got a little bit of chorus going through, but otherwise it's a completely dry signal and just sounds like this. Which is alright, but is a little bit spiky on the high end, I think needs a little bit more low end. So let's just start messing with the EQ, see if we can do that. So as you can see right now, the EQ's completely flat, I'm not doing anything to it. I think we need a little bit more 125 to 500. I'm going to do a very gentle boost on 31.25 and 62.5 as well. So let's do that. If we something about there. Let's just bring these up so it sounds a bit more even. And we need a little bit less of the ultra highs. So let's drop the 8K and 16K sliders down a bit, and that's probably about good. So before we see what difference this EQ's made, let's just give a little clean passage just to have a reference point that we can compare from. Without the EQ in, the guitar sounds like this. So nice enough, but I think we need a bit of an EQ boost just to shape it out a little bit more and see what it sounds like then. So let's switch it on. And it sounds a little bit like this. It's a bit more pleasing to listen to. There's a bit less of that spiky high end, a little bit rounder, a little bit less of those unpleasant mids that you can get sometimes. I like it. So what can the 10-band EQ do when we pump some gain through it? I reckon it's going to be a lot more important on a gainy sound to get that really defined, distinct sound that so many people seem to have thanks to things like studio processing and external EQs and whatever else. Normal amps, at least to me, don't sound that way. So we're going to see if we can replicate it now. I already know a couple of problem areas on my amp. I know that around 3.5k it gets very spiky and quite unpleasant to listen to, can get quite fatiguing, so we're going to dial that out, and I guess we'll put in some sub-lows just to see what it does. So I've just switched over to the gain channel without any extra EQ added. This is what it sounds like. It's alright, needs a little bit of an extra touch though, I think. So, we're going to put the EQ in, see what difference it makes. Now I'm pretty sure that I've seen every other EQ demo of every EQ ever do this before, but we're going to do it now just to see how the MXR 10 band deals with it. We're going to push 500Hz and 1K all the way up. We're going to take every other EQ slider, all 8, drop them all the way down to see if we can get that kind of AM radio sound that I guess people now most associate with like Green Day. I can't think of any other bands that use it very much, but that's okay because it's quite a cool sound and we're going to do it anyway. And push that up. I've only moved 2 or 3 sliders and it's getting quite noisy. I think this is something that would definitely need some kind of noise gate in there just to bring out or bring down the hiss and fuzz before you actually start playing. On its own it's quite unpleasant, but I reckon for an effect or for a bit in a song that'd work really well. What happens if we take a distortion sound that we're generally quite happy with, we boost the lows a little bit again, I'll go back to that gentle scoop setting I had before, but what if we drop the super lows and drop the super highs, so it's kind of a high pass filter and a low pass filter, as if it was in a recording situation, and we can find out how that sounds. I reckon we'll give that a go. So what was it, 501k we dipped very slightly, about there. 125 was up, 250 was up, Let's keep 62, but let's drop 31. Like that. There was a little bit on 2K. 4K wasn't about 0. 8K do that tiniest bit, and 16 all the way down. Is there an audible difference? I reckon that'd sit really well in a mix, but on its own it's really quite unpleasant. It's not that much different from how it was before, apart from just having the super lows and super highs back in. I think it might be something to do with because guitars in a mix have to fill a certain sonic space and everything else has its own sonic space, whereas a guitar on its own can occupy however much space it wants, so it sounds very weedy without it. I want to push the super lows and super highs back in because I'm not sure I enjoy this sound on its own too much, and it's making me a little bit sad. Now there's one other thing that I wanted to try and use this EQ for, and I want to see if I can do it. The MXR Mark 525 has two channels. We've got a clean and we've got a distortion. On the clean channel there is a crunch mode, which is kind of like the second channel on the full-size Mark 5, but you can either have that or you can have a clean sound. You can't have both at once unless you want to redial the entire amp. And to be honest, I'm not about that life. So we're going to run a low gain overdrive pedal through it, or at least an overdrive pedal set to relatively low gain, and we're going to use the 10-band EQ to correct the EQ of an overdrive somewhat to make it sound more like a rhythm sound rather than a lead sound with the bass cut and the mid boost and whatever. That doesn't really work as a rhythm sound on its own. It can be quite unpleasant to listen to. So let's give it a go. For this example, I'm using an MXR Shinjuku drive, which I really like the sound of as an overdrive, as a bit of a clean boost, which is what I got it for. It needs a bit more EQ. So we're going to do that now. Now, as I understand it, overdrives will generally drop the bass a little bit, drop the highs a little bit, if not leave them kind of unaffected, and boost the mids quite a lot, so that a sound cuts through a mix and, makes its own sonic space. So we're going to do the exact opposite of that. We are going to boost the bass up, we're going to drop the mids, and we're going to boost the treble a little bit, kind of in that scooped sound again, to see if we can get a workable low gain rhythm sound out of it. I'm not sure how successful this is going to be, but let's find out. The Shinjuku drive on its own, going into the clean channel of the Mark 525, just sounds like this. It's alright as a lead sound, it's a little bit unsatisfying as a rhythm sound. It's not got the that you need. I don't know how to explain it apart from doing that. That was really terrible, I'm sorry. So let's try this. Let's take those mid sliders again. Let's drop them. Let's take 250 and boost it a little bit. 125, boost it a little bit more. 62, 31 we're going to do in a gentle slope back downwards like that. Let's drop 1k a little bit more actually, and 500, let's do about that. Let's boost 4k and 8k, 16 going down a little bit again, something like that. And if that's really dodgy, then we'll fine tune it a little bit more beyond that. actually doesn't sound that bad. It's usable. I think it needs a little bit more fine-tuning beyond there, but that's a lot better than I expected. Now there is one other thing that I want to try out with this. You might have noticed that on the 10-band EQ we've got a volume slider and a gain slider. Volume sounds pretty self-explanatory, right? You turn it up, it gets louder, turn it down, it gets quieter. But I want to know what kind of difference the gain control makes, because I've not experimented with that at all, really. And I'm curious. I want to see if we can kind of push that to distort the sound a little bit more than would be ordinarily possible. I don't know how successful this is going to be, but we're going to go back to a clean channel. That was gain. This is clean channel. And all we're going to do, we're going to not even put any chorus on it. Straightforward clean sound. We're going to drop the volume right down. Almost all the way off. What, to about there. And we'll push the gain all the way up to about there. And now I want to see what difference this makes. Makes no difference whatsoever. It's highly likely that I've misused this, and that's not what it's intended for. It's probably more designed for if you're switching between a Strat and a Les Paul or something, or insert single coil guitar, insert high output humbucker guitar here, and you've got to compensate for a volume difference and maybe shape the tone a little bit more. I think under ordinary circumstances I'd probably just leave the volume and gain doing nothing, unless you really want to, for some reason, drop your input massively and push the output. But I don't hear any difference in that whatsoever. But I have just thought, maybe it'll come through different on my DAW. I'll check when I'm checking the audio and see if it's made any difference to like the waveform or anything like that. There's no difference whatsoever. It's coming across the exact same, even in the DAW. So it turns out pushing the gain does nothing. Just thought of something else that I want to try on the distorted channel. You might be aware that if you listen to Pantera, Down by Dowell has the most ridiculously scooped sound that is, I think, possible to get. And I want to see how that sounds going into an already scooped amp, pushing a huge scoop on this EQ, massively pushing the lows, massively pushing the highs, dialing out the mids entirely. I want to see what that does. I'm sorry in advance for how this sounds. I can hear the high gain fizz already. I'm a little bit scared. That is worse than silence. Alright, we're dialing that out, never mind. I think that's about everything that I wanted to try out in this video for the 10-band EQ. My conclusions are kind of exactly what I expected them to be. That you can really fine-tune your sound. You can make it sound exactly how you want it to if you've got the time to devote to that. Or you can just use it to kind of dial out unpleasant frequencies if you want to. Use it as an effect, just to, you know, push up the mids and get that AM radio sound if you want that. I've seen a couple of different people on forums and the like saying they've got like 4 or 5 of these at different strategic points in their signal chain. I don't think I've got the patience to devote my time to something like that. If you have, more power to you. I think I'd just use this as a general tone shaper, just to kind of refine the sound of the amp a little bit more. What I would perhaps also use this for is I would keep it in a backpack at all times and have an 18 volt power supply with me or 2 9 volt batteries, and if I ever got lost I would use it as like a homing beacon, because those LEDs are so bright it really hurts to look at, and I don't know why I keep looking at it. I need to stop doing that. I'm in horrible pain right now. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sitting through this. If you liked anything in this video, drop me a comment, let me know. If you thought anything was really terrible about this video, drop me a comment, let me know. If you liked it, drop a like as well. If you really liked it, feel free to subscribe. Hopefully I'll get some more stuff out to you, and I will see you next time, so thank you.